I think I want to go back to your career trajectory. I think from what I'm recalling, in around 2003-4, you came back to India.
Yeah.
And I think you were doing something which today people will call generative AI. 20 साल पहले, right? I think you can maybe elaborate on that. But what was the trigger, in the 2003-4? And in some way, looks like, I was following you because 2-3 years later, I also ended up being in Bangalore trying to start a company. But उस time पे क्या सोच के, like, what convinced you to move back to India and try to build a startup? And it was kind of generative AI, right, for animation stuff?
Correct. So again, like, I'm going back to the marathon thing, right? So I literally took the decision to come back to India in like a matter of a day or two, kind of thing. Like, thankfully, that time I was not married, so only I had to take the decision. Right? So it started with like that in Bay Area, like San Francisco, there's the Sony Metreon Theater, right? And me and one of my Caucasian friend, like both of us were at MIT together. We went out for dinner and then we said, "Chalo, Sony Metreon में एक movie देखते हैं." Both of us like Pixar movies, so on and so forth kind of thing. And then we watched like Monster INC, right? And then उसके बाद both of us came out and then I said, "Oh, बहुत अच्छी picture थी." But the funny thing was, like, for me, right? For him, it was about the story, right? That, oh, when I was a kid, I used to think that monster hide inside cupboard, this, that, so on and so forth, right? And for me, it was all about the quality of animation, right? So if you look at that one, right, the fur animation was fantastic. I said, boss, itna solid, itna computation isne karke kar diya, matlab, that's fantastic. This is like such a great piece of technology. Well, I enjoyed the movie, but that tech was this thing, right? And then I realized, like, the reason why I'm not able to associate to the story, right? मतलब कि हम लोग गुल्ली डंडा खेल करके बड़े हुए हैं, बहुत मतलब पैसे इकट्ठा करके 10 रुपए का कॉर्केट बॉल खरीदते थे. स्टफ्ड एनिमल तो मतलब कि अमेरिका जाने से पहले देखे भी नहीं थे, राइट? सो देन आई रियलाइज दैट ऑल दिस मूवीज डू रिलेटिवली ओके इन इंडिया, राइट? But what if we make a movie which is as good as the quality of a Pixar, using the right technology style, some of the things that we have built at services, and then build it for the Indian market, kind of thing, right? So, bit of an impulsive decision, but that is how I started, right? That how do I use a better animation technique to make up a sort of an animation lab kind of thing, and then build up a equivalent of a Pixar in India.
So you watched Monsters Inc. You're inspired. Decide to, like, from that, how many days or months?
Less than a month.
You were in India.
I was in India. I was in India. Like, I first moved to Hyderabad and started the studio called as Timeline Studios, kind of thing, right?
What did your father think this time? Gave up?
I have just I have a no. So hold it, like, so I was 27, 28 that time, right? 28, right? And IAS का cut off is 30.
Right.
So my father said, जब इंडिया आ ही रहे हो तो IAS क्यों नहीं दे, थोड़ा पढ़ाई करोगे? So yeah, so that is what he was thinking, कि IAS दे दो. But certainly that was off the topic for me, kind of thing. I said, no, I'm going to do this startup, kind of thing, right?
So you tried the startup a few years.
I tried for almost slightly more than a year, kind of thing, right? And just to clean up the story, so I think what we're building again was good, kind of thing. So there was a learning from Zoesis. Certainly I was much more matured, so on and so forth, kind of thing. But that learning taught us, so just to sum up that story, right? So that time dollar to INR was like 40 or something, right? So our entire cost of making, so we made a good 10-minute prototype, but it was about 2 fishes and some interesting story, fun, so on and so forth, kind of thing. This was, by the way, before Finding Nemo, just before that. But it was not Finding Nemo. The script was very different, right? And interestingly, I wrote that script. But what happened over there was that so overall cost of producing the movie would have been $3 million. So 12-13 prototypes, right? And then, so while we are doing the right thing, but then all of a sudden, that's when the product market fit came into picture, right? That time, the cost of the Shah Rukh Khan was big that time. He's still big. And the cost of making a Shah Rukh Khan movie was 17-18 crore, right? So then the choice was obvious. Like, why will somebody, like, between putting money in 12 crores and 18 crores, the choice is very clear, right? Like, Shah Rukh Khan ke 18 crore mein movie banaoge, ki hai. And that was where, like, and I strongly believe, and we'll come to ZopSmart now, that in the current generation, the world is flat. Whatever thing that we are building, it has to have a global appeal, right? So the mistake that we did at Timeline Studio was we should have thought about, my vision should have been very myopic, that I'm going to build this only for India. Had the vision been that I'm going to build it for the entire world, kind of thing, right? that would have been fun. And ironically, we had the right set of tech stack, so on and so forth. We were like, compared to a Pixel, we were like probably 10x, 20x more cheaper. Certainly, there was an India advantage, but we had a very strong tech advantage, so on and so forth. But somehow I was very fixated on like, and you know this, for a long period of time, my signature used to be Jai Hind, right? So I was very focused ki India, India and only India kind of thing, right?
And talk more about that. Like, how did you think about India? I think around same time I moved back to India. You know, in those days, we used to talk about India shining and all of that. And the stock of India was rising in the world. I genuinely believe that India is starting to take off. And I wanted to be part of that story from ground zero. Like, that's what really eventually convinced me to move back here after 10 years. What was your thought process, mental model of, you know, I mean, Silicon Valley is, you know, probably one of the most fascinating places in the world. To learn, to start a company, great weather, California is an amazing place, you know. Why give up all that and move to India? Ki kya dikh raha tha us waqt in India?
Well, to begin with, for Timeless Studio, it was like I really like the domain, right? That's the thing. Certainly, the India shining was there kind of thing. Like, and one of my quote that I really like is this from Abraham Lincoln, right? If you want to predict the future, create one. Right, so the best way to predict the future is to invent the future kind of thing, right? So I was in that boat, right? That ki boss आएंगे, ठीक है? India, I agree, was shining, right? If you look at it in terms of spends on, मतलब पहले क्या होगा, right? पहले लोग रोटी कपड़ा और मकान देखेंगे, फिर ये जाएगा. तो certainly I was not into the roti kapda makan. Also later now, with ZopSmart I was like, but it was कि जब पैसे आएंगे लोग क्या करेंगे? People want a better source of entertainment, so on and so forth, and that's the segment that I was looking for, right? So certainly India shining, India rising, that was even very clear in that 2003-4, and I'm very glad, right? If you look at 2023, we certainly have made a lot of progress, right? So certainly it was along that theme कि India will be shining, and then these guys will need this entertainment.